The galaxy was on fire, and Earth refused to help put it out. Ambassador Chen Wei-Ming sat across from 3 alien representatives in the sterile white conference room of the United Nations building in Geneva. Outside the windows, the Swiss mountains stood peaceful and unchanged, unlike the star systems burning across the galaxy. "Ambassador Chen," said war leader Clix of the Catherian Empire, his insect-like mandibles clicking with frustration. "Your planet continues to ignore its duty to civilization. The Proximan Federation bleeds while you sell them grain." Chen folded his hands calmly. The Catherian stood over 7 feet tall, with black armor that gleamed like a beetle's shell. His 6 arms moved restlessly, a sign Chen had learned meant anger. "We have explained our position many times. Earth does not involve itself in galactic conflicts." Admiral Veltar of the Proximan Federation leaned forward. Her blue-scaled face showed desperation. 20 years of war, Ambassador. 20 years of death. The Zephyrians burn our colonies with energy weapons. The Catherians tear apart our ships with bioweapons. We need your help. "You need someone else's help," corrected Ambassador Thurman of the Zephyrian Coalition. His energy-based form flickered like a candle in the wind. "The Proximans started this war by claiming our holy systems. The Catherians joined to feed on the chaos." War leader Clix's claws scraped the table. "We joined to bring order to chaos. Insect wisdom guides the galaxy better than energy ghosts or scale-skin primitives." Chen watched the old argument begin again. The 3 alien powers had been fighting for 20 years over territory, resources, and old grudges. Each side wanted Earth to join their cause. Each side was disappointed. "Gentlemen, please," Chen said quietly. All 3 aliens stopped talking. "Earth's position has not changed. We will provide humanitarian aid, medical supplies, and food to all sides equally. We will not provide weapons or soldiers." "Cowardice," spat Clix. "Your species hides behind neutrality because you fear real conflict." "Perhaps," Chen replied without emotion. "But it is our choice to make." The meeting ended like all the others had for 2 decades. The aliens left frustrated. Earth remained neutral. The war continued. After the aliens departed, Chen walked to his private office. He touched a hidden panel, and a screen emerged from the wall. The face that appeared belonged to his daughter, Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Space Forces. "How did it go, Dad?" she asked. Behind her, Chen could see the bridge of her ship, the TSF Perseverance. "Same as always. They think we're afraid." Chen smiled slightly. "How are the research missions going?" End quote. End quote. End quote. "Very well. We finished mapping the Catherian fleet movements in Sector 7. Their bioships are impressive. But they have weaknesses. The Zephyrian energy weapons are powerful, but they drain their power cores quickly. The Proximan kinetic shields can't handle sustained bombardment." Chen nodded. "Good intelligence. How's the crew?" "Ready for anything. Though they're getting tired of pretending our weapons are primitive." Sarah glanced at something off-screen. The new railguns performed perfectly in testing yesterday. Silent running, no energy signature, and the projectiles move at 0.97 light speed. "Excellent. Remember, the mission continues. Watch, learn, and prepare." "Understood, sir." "How much longer do you think this war will last?" Chen looked out his window at the peaceful mountains. "Until someone makes a mistake that forces our hand. Let's hope that day never comes." Far across the galaxy, the war raged on 3 fronts. The Catherian bioships, grown rather than built, swarmed through space like living creatures. They fired acid that ate through armor and released spores that turned captured ships into new weapons. The Catherians believed in conquest through consumption. The Zephyrian Coalition fought with pure energy. Their ships were crystals that focused power into beams capable of cutting planets in half. They moved like light itself, appearing and disappearing across battlefields. The Zephyrians sought to cleanse the galaxy of what they called solid matter corruption. The Proximan Federation relied on kinetic weapons and strong shields. Their ships were metal fortresses that fired chunks of matter at incredible speeds. They were the closest to human design, but their technology was still centuries behind what Earth had secretly developed. None of the three powers truly understood Earth's capabilities. They saw human ships moving slowly through space with chemical rockets. They detected primitive nuclear weapons and basic computers. They assumed Earth was a backward planet that had stumbled into space travel by accident. They were wrong about everything. In hidden facilities throughout the solar system, Earth's real fleet was growing. Shipyards beyond Pluto worked day and night, building vessels with technology that would shock the galaxy. The asteroid belt hid massive mining operations that extracted materials for weapons the aliens had never imagined. On Mars, scientists worked on projects that pushed the boundaries of physics itself. Jupiter's moons housed training facilities where human soldiers learned to fight in ways that would terrify their enemies. Saturn's rings hid sensor networks that monitored every ship movement within 50 light years. Earth had spent 50 years preparing for galactic war. Not because they wanted it, but because they knew it would eventually come to them. Humans had studied every conflict in recorded history. They understood that neutrality only lasted as long as all sides respected it. The alien representatives left Earth believing they had met with cowards. They reported back to their governments that humans were weak, frightened creatures clinging to an outdated concept of peace. They recommended patience, believing Earth would eventually be forced to choose a side. They had no idea that Earth had already chosen a side, their own. Ambassador Chen finished his daily reports and prepared to go home to his apartment in Geneva. Before leaving, he checked the daily intelligence summaries from across the galaxy. The war was getting worse. The Catherians had started using planet-killer weapons against Proximan colonies. The Zephyrians were targeting civilian ships. The Proximans were drafting children to replace their losses. Chen sighed and closed the files. 50 million beings had died in this war. Entire species had been enslaved or destroyed. The galaxy was learning what humans had known for centuries. War was the most expensive way to solve any problem, but sometimes it was the only way. War Prince Zekthul of the Catherian Empire studied the holographic display showing human space. His compound eyes focused on the pale blue world that had remained stubbornly neutral for 20 years of galactic warfare. "Explain to me again why we tolerate this insult," he said to his intelligence officer, a smaller Catherian named Velo K. "The humans provide food and medical supplies to all sides, Your Magnificence. They claim neutrality based on their primitive understanding of warfare. Our analysts believe they genuinely fear engaging in combat." Zekthul's forearms gestured dismissively. "Fear. A weakness that infects lower species." He turned to face Velo K directly. "The war grows costly. We need a quick victory to demoralize the Proximans and show the Zephyrians our strength. What better target than a species too weak to defend itself? Your Magnificence. The humans have done nothing to provoke. They exist," Zekthul interrupted. "That is provocation enough. Besides, forcing them into the war will give us easy victories. Their primitive kinetic weapons cannot penetrate our bioarmor." Velo K hesitated. Something felt wrong about this plan. But questioning a war prince was dangerous. "What are your orders, Your Magnificence?" "Assemble the Ravager fleet. We will demonstrate Catherian power by destroying their Mars research station and Luna City. A simple show of force. They will surrender immediately. And we will have new slaves to work our bioforges." 3 days later, the Catherian Ravager fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. 40 bioships, each grown from living coral and armed with acid cannons, moved toward the inner planets. They expected no resistance. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was finishing her shift at Luna City's Agricultural Research Center when the alarms began screaming. She looked up from her microscope to see her assistant, Marcus, staring at his computer screen in horror. "Elena, you need to see this," Marcus whispered. The screen showed radar contacts approaching Luna from deep space. 40 large objects moving at high speed. Not human ships. The signatures were all wrong. "Get everyone to the emergency shelters," Elena ordered. "Now." At Luna City's primary school, Teacher Jennifer Walsh was reading to her students when the evacuation alarm sounded. 30 children between ages 6 and 12 looked at her with wide, frightened eyes. "Children, remember our drill?" Jennifer said calmly. "We need to go to the safe room now. Just like we practiced." 8-year-old Tommy raised his hand. "Is this a real emergency, Miss Walsh?" Jennifer forced a smile. "Let's go find out together." She never got the chance. The first Catherian bioship reached Luna 30 minutes later. The bioships opened fire without warning. Acid cannons melted through Luna City's outer domes in seconds. Atmosphere rushed out into space, carrying with it the screams of 50,000 civilians who had never hurt anyone. On Mars, the research station suffered a similar fate. Scientists working on medical technology for war refugees died at their workstations. The agricultural domes that fed 3-star systems collapsed in clouds of toxic gas. Dr. Rodriguez managed to reach an emergency pod before the oxygen ran out. As she floated in space waiting for rescue, she watched Luna City burn. Through her pod's radio, she heard the last transmission from the primary school. Jennifer Walsh singing a lullaby to her students as the walls caved in around them. On Earth, Ambassador Chen Wei-Ming was having dinner with his wife when his emergency communicator activated. The message was brief and devastating. Luna City destroyed. Mars research station obliterated. 50,000 civilians dead. His wife saw his face go pale. "Wei-Ming? What is it?" Chen stood slowly, his hands shaking with an emotion she had never seen in 30 years of marriage. "They killed the children, Lin. They killed the children." The emergency session of Earth's united government lasted 6 hours. Representatives from every nation sat in the chamber beneath Geneva, listening to reports from the few survivors. The debate was brief. Prime Minister Sarah Johnson of the United Kingdom spoke for them all. "The time for neutrality has ended." Admiral Elena Vasquez, Supreme Commander of the Terran Defense Forces, activated the communication systems that had remained hidden for 50 years. Across the solar system, sleeper agents received their activation codes. Hidden facilities powered up, the real human fleet prepared to emerge from the shadows. Captain Sarah Chen received her father's personal message aboard the Perseverance. "You have full authorization, daughter. Show them what humans do to those who murder children." War Prince Zek Thul celebrated his easy victory from the command deck of his flagship, the Living Death. The human defensive response had been pathetic. A few small patrol ships that his bioweapons had dissolved in minutes. No military resistance whatsoever. "Send a message to Earth," he ordered Veloke. "Tell them they have 72 hours to surrender completely, or we will destroy their homeworld." Veloke composed the message as ordered, but something troubled him. His sensors had detected strange energy readings during the attack. For primitive humans, their technology had some unusual features. The isotopic signatures of their kinetic weapons suggested physics that shouldn't be possible with their supposed tech level. The response from Earth arrived exactly 1 hour later. It was brief, delivered by Ambassador Chen himself. "War Prince Zek Thul of the Catherian Empire. You have attacked civilian targets without provocation. You have murdered children. You have made a grave error. Earth hereby declares war on the Catherian Empire. May your ancestors forgive you for what you have brought upon your people." Zek Thul laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Ancestors? When I finish with them, humans won't have ancestors. They won't have descendants either." But as he spoke, his sensor officers began reporting impossible readings. Ships were emerging from hidden positions throughout the solar system. Not dozens. Hundreds. Not hundreds. Thousands. The human fleet that revealed itself was unlike anything in the galactic databases. Sleek vessels that moved with impossible grace. Weapons signatures that registered as primitive kinetics but produced energy readings that defied classification. Ships that appeared to be using physics the Kytherians had never encountered. "Your Magnificence," Veloke said quietly. "I believe we may have made an error in our intelligence assessment." Zek Thul stared at the sensor displays showing a human fleet that outnumbered his own forces 20-1. Ships were still emerging from hiding places among asteroids, behind moons, and from deep space where no ships should have been able to hide. "That's impossible. he whispered. Our spies confirmed their primitive technology. Their ships are slow. Their weapons basic kinetics. Their computers barely functional. Perhaps, Veloke suggested carefully, they wanted us to think that. The first human vessels reached combat range, while Zekthul was still trying to understand what he was seeing. The TSF Righteous Fury, a dreadnought that hadn't appeared on any intelligence reports, opened fire with weapons that made the space around the Catherian fleet burn like a star. War Prince Zekthul realized he had not attacked a primitive species hiding from galactic conflict. He had awakened something that had been restraining itself for decades, something that had been watching, learning, and preparing, something that was no longer patient. As his bioships began dying around him, Zekthul received one final message from Admiral Vasquez of the Terran Defense Forces. You wanted to see what humans do in war. Now you will learn. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the TSF Righteous Fury as her ship dropped out of hyperspace. Around her, the human fleet materialized like ghosts becoming real. 2,000 vessels of war that had been hidden for 50 years now emerged into the light. Admiral, we're receiving distress signals from Proximan Station Alpha, reported Lieutenant Commander Park. Catherian forces have been besieging them for 6 days. Their shields are failing. Vasquez studied the tactical display. The Proximan Federation had been humanity's closest allies, even if they didn't know it. Their species was honorable, fighting only to defend their territory. They deserved better than to die alone. Signal the fleet, Vasquez ordered. All ships to combat formation. Time to show the galaxy what humans have been building. At Proximan Station Alpha, Commander Veltar watched her shields collapse under the endless assault from Catherian bioships. Her vessel, the Defender's Hope, was the last ship protecting the station where 3 million Proximan civilians waited for evacuation. Commander, her sensor officer called out, I'm detecting massive hyperspace distortions. Something big is coming. Veltar's blue scales darkened with exhaustion. They had been fighting for 6 days straight. Her crew was beyond tired, running on pure determination. More Catherian reinforcements? Negative, Commander. These signatures are unknown. The space around Station Alpha suddenly filled with human ships. Veltar stared at her displays in disbelief. She had seen human vessels before. Slow, clumsy things that moved like wounded animals through space. These ships moved like dancers, graceful and deadly. This is Admiral Vasquez of the Terran Defense Forces, came a transmission on all frequencies. Catherian vessels, you are in violation of interstellar law by attacking civilian targets. Withdraw immediately, or face the consequences. War Prince Zekthul, commanding the siege from his flagship, responded with typical Catherian arrogance. Primitive humans, you are outmatched. Flee now or share the fate of these scaleskins. Admiral Vasquez's voice remained calm. You were warned. What happened next changed galactic warfare forever. The human ships opened fire with weapons that appeared on sensors as simple kinetic projectiles. But these weren't chunks of metal fired by chemical explosives. They were streams of matter accelerated to near light speed by gravitational fields that shouldn't have been possible. The first volley struck 3 Catherian bioships simultaneously. The living vessels simply ceased to exist, their organic armor vaporized by impacts carrying the energy of small stars. No explosion. No debris. They were simply gone. Commander Veltar watched her sensors with growing amazement. By the ancestors, she whispered. What are those weapons? The human fleet moved like a school of fish, each ship perfectly coordinated with the others. They seemed to know exactly where the Catherian vessels would be before the enemy ships got there. It was like watching the future fight the past. Catherian bioships were living creatures, evolved for war over millions of years. Their organic armor could regenerate from damage. Their acid weapons could eat through any known metal. They had conquered dozens of species with these advantages. None of it mattered against human weapons. A Catherian cruiser fired its acid cannons at the human destroyer TSF Vengeance. The acid struck an energy field that appeared around the human ship like a soap bubble. The deadly acid simply bounced off harmlessly. The Vengeance responded by firing a single projectile that passed through the Catherian ship from bow to stern. The bioship's living computers couldn't process what had happened before their organic systems shut down forever. Impossible, breathed War Prince Zekthul as he watched his fleet die around him. No species should have this technology. Our spies reported primitive kinetics and slow chemical rockets. His intelligence officer, Velo K, was frantically checking their databases. Your Magnificence. The energy readings are beyond our understanding. These aren't kinetic weapons at all. They're using controlled antimatter with gravitational focusing systems. Antimatter? Zekthul's compound eyes focused on the tactical display. That technology is theoretical even for us. Not for them, apparently. Captain Sarah Chen commanded the TSF Perseverance as it danced through the battle like a deadly bird. Her ship's sensors tracked every Kytherian vessel while its stealth systems kept it nearly invisible. She had been watching these enemies for months, learning their weaknesses. Captain, her weapons officer reported, the flagship is attempting to withdraw. Sarah smiled coldly. Not today. Target their bio-engines with precision strikes. I want them disabled, not destroyed. The Perseverance fired 4 perfect shots that severed the nerve clusters controlling the Catherian flagship's movement. The massive bioship drifted helplessly as human vessels surrounded it. Admiral Vasquez opened a channel to the Catherian war prince. Zekthul of the Catherian Empire. Your fleet is defeated. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to the laws of war. Never, Zekthul snarled. The Empire does not surrender to primitives. Primitives? Vasquez's voice carried a note of dark amusement. You attacked our children. You murdered civilians. And you still don't understand what you're facing. The remaining Catherian ships tried to form a defensive formation, but the human fleet moved around them like water flowing around stones. Every shot the aliens fired missed. Every shot the humans fired found its mark. Commander Veltar of the Proximan forces watched the battle with growing awe. Her people had been fighting the Catherians for 20 years, winning some battles and losing others. The humans were making it look effortless. Commander, her communications officer called out. We're receiving a message from the human admiral. Veltar opened the channel. Admiral Vasquez's face appeared on her screen, a human woman with gray hair and kind eyes that currently burned with righteous anger. Commander Veltar, please begin evacuating your civilians to safe distance. We'll maintain a protective screen around the station. Admiral, Veltar said carefully, we are grateful for your assistance. But how is this possible? Our intelligence reports indicated that human technology was deliberately misleading. Vasquez finished. We've been watching this war for 20 years, Commander. We know who the aggressors are and who the defenders are. We know who targets civilians and who protects them. As they spoke, the last Catherian ships were either destroyed or surrendering. The battle that should have lasted hours was over in 30 minutes. 3 million Proximan civilians were safe, protected by a fleet that had appeared from nowhere. War Prince Zekthul found himself a prisoner aboard the Righteous Fury, standing before Admiral Vasquez in her ready room. The human looked smaller than he had expected, but her presence filled the space with an authority he had never encountered. You lied to us, he accused. Your technology is beyond anything in our databases. You could have ended this war years ago. Vasquez nodded slowly. We could have. We chose not to. Why? Because wars should end with justice, not just victory. Because strength without wisdom is just destruction. Because we hoped you would eventually learn to be better than what you are. Zekthul's mandibles clicked in confusion. You are warriors. Why did you hide your warrior nature? Admiral Vasquez stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. War Prince, we didn't hide our warrior nature. We hid our restraint. You see, we learned something long ago that your species apparently hasn't. The strongest person in the room isn't the one who can hurt others the most. It's the one who can hurt others the most and chooses not to. She turned back to face him. You forced our hand by murdering our children. Now you'll discover what humans become when we stop choosing restraint. The news of the Battle of Station Alpha spread across the galaxy within hours. The Catherian Empire's most powerful fleet had been destroyed by a species everyone believed was primitive. The Proximan Federation was saved by allies they didn't know they had. But the real shock came when intelligence analysts across 3 civilizations realized the truth. Earth had been preparing for galactic war for decades. Their apparent weakness had been a mask hiding the most advanced military technology anyone had ever seen. The war was about to change in ways no one could imagine. Captain Sarah Chen's stealth ship, the Perseverance, drifted silently through the Catherian Empire's most secure system. Around her, enemy bioships patrolled in formations that had protected their homeworld for 1,000 years. They had no idea death was already among them. "Captain," whispered her tactical officer, "the target vessel is directly ahead. Bio-cruiser class." Carrying their war council, Sarah studied the massive living ship through her scope. Inside that creature of war and bone were the Catherian generals planning the next phase of their campaign. They expected to be safe in the heart of their own territory. They were wrong. "Deploy the Wraith Marines," Sarah ordered quietly. "Full stealth insertion. I want those war plans and I want their command structure intact for interrogation." 6 pods ejected silently from the Perseverance, invisible to Catherian sensors. Inside each pod, a human soldier waited in powered armor that made them faster and stronger than any being in the galaxy. The Catherian Empire was about to discover what human special forces could do. Lieutenant Marcus Rivera led the insertion team through the bioship's organic corridors. The walls pulsed with alien life, and the air smelled of decay and acid. His suit's systems translated the alien computer languages in real time, giving him complete access to their navigation and security. "Wraith 2 to Wraith Leader," came a voice over his comm. "I'm reading Catherian command staff in the central chamber. 6 high-ranking officers and a war prince. Copy that, Wraith 2. Remember the mission parameters. We want them alive and talking." The Catherian War Council never saw the humans coming. One moment they were planning the invasion of Proximan colonies, the next they were unconscious on the floor, their bioship security systems completely bypassed. When War Prince Kethmul awoke, he was aboard a human vessel, restrained but unharmed. A human female in military uniform sat across from him. Her name tag read Chen, and her rank insignia showed a captain. "War Prince Kethmul," Sarah said politely, "thank you for joining us. I have some questions about your military operations." Kethmul's mandibles clicked with rage. "You dare take me prisoner? The Empire will burn your pathetic worlds for this insult." Sarah touched a control pad, and a holographic display appeared between them. It showed real-time footage from across the galaxy. Catherian fleets under attack by human forces, bioships being systematically destroyed, and Catherian commanders surrendering. "Your empire is losing this war faster than you can process the reports," Sarah said calmly. "Your bioships are impressive, but they're essentially animals. They follow patterns. We've been studying those patterns for 20 years. The display changed to show detailed schematics of Catherian biotechnology. Every weakness, every vulnerability, every tactical limitation was mapped and analyzed. "How?" Kethmul whispered. "How do you know so much about our ships? We've been inside dozens of them over the past 2 decades. Your crews never noticed because our stealth technology is centuries ahead of your sensors. We know everything about your military capabilities." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Admiral Vasquez coordinated the largest military operation in human history. From her command ship orbiting Earth, she watched as human fleets emerged from hiding places that shouldn't have existed. "Admiral," her intelligence officer reported, "Operation Starfall is proceeding ahead of schedule. We've eliminated 70% of their forward fleets, captured their main supply depots, and their communication networks are completely compromised." Vasquez nodded as she studied the tactical displays. The Catherian Empire had seemed invincible because they fought like animals, with instinct and aggression. Humans fought like humans, with intelligence, planning, and technology that turned physics into art. "What's our status on the Forge worlds?" "Fully operational, Admiral. Production is at maximum capacity. We can build ships faster than they can destroy them, even if they had the capability to destroy them. The Forge worlds were humanity's greatest secret. Beyond Pluto, where no alien scout had ever traveled. Massive automated shipyards worked day and night. They had been building humanity's war fleet for 50 years, using technology that made the galaxy's most advanced civilizations look primitive. Catherian intelligence officer Velo K stood in the ruins of their most secure base, watching human soldiers process captured data with casual efficiency. The humans moved through their facility like they owned it, copying files and dismantling equipment with professional skill. "How long have they been watching us?" he asked the human sergeant, overseeing the operation. Sergeant Johnson looked up from a Catherian data core she was analyzing. "About 30 years for your species specifically. We've been monitoring galactic civilization for 80 years overall." 80 years? Velo K's compound eyes widened. "But your first contact with galactic civilization was only 25 years ago, officially." Johnson smiled. "We're very good at staying hidden when we want to be. Your people never thought to look for stealth ships that don't show up on any sensors you possess." She gestured to the data around them. "We know your military strength down to the last bioship. We know your supply chains, your manufacturing capabilities, and your command structure. We even know which of your officers can be trusted to honor surrender terms and which ones will fight to the death." The truth was slowly spreading across the galaxy. Earth hadn't been a backward planet, stumbling into space travel. They had been the galaxy's most advanced civilization, choosing to remain hidden until someone forced their hand. On the Zephyrian Coalition homeworld, Council leader Zenthara studied intelligence reports with growing alarm. Her energy-based people had considered themselves the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy. The humans were proving them wrong. "They're using weapons that manipulate gravity itself," reported her chief scientist. "They can create localized black holes for propulsion and generate energy fields that our most powerful attacks cannot penetrate. How is this possible?" Zenthara flickered with confusion. "Our scans showed primitive nuclear technology and basic computers. They were showing us what they wanted us to see. Analysis of the recent battles indicates they've had faster-than-light travel for over a century. Their primitive kinetic weapons are actually relativistic projectiles with controllable mass. They can make a grain of sand hit with the force of a nuclear bomb." The Proximan Federation was experiencing a similar revelation. Admiral Veltar, of the Proximan Defense Force, met with Human Admiral Vasquez aboard the human vessel Forge of Liberty to coordinate their joint operations. "Admiral Vasquez," Veltar said carefully, "our military analysts have been studying your technology. Your capabilities exceed anything we thought possible. Why did you hide this from your allies?" Vasquez was quiet for a moment, looking out at the stars through the ship's viewing port. "Admiral, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. Do you have children?" Veltar's blue scales shifted color slightly, a sign of emotion among her people. "I have 3 daughters. They serve in our merchant fleet, far from the war zones." "I have grandchildren," Vasquez said softly. 6 of them. They're growing up on Earth, playing in gardens, learning about art and music and mathematics. They've never seen a battlefield." She turned to face Veltar directly. "We hid our capabilities because we wanted to give the galaxy a chance to solve its problems without us. We hoped the war would end through negotiation or exhaustion. We prepared for the possibility that it wouldn't, but we hoped. And now? Now, someone murdered our children. Someone decided that human civilians were acceptable targets. So now the galaxy gets to see what we become when hope runs out." The holographic display in the room showed the current military situation. Red marks indicated Catherian positions. There were far fewer than there had been a week ago. Blue marks showed Proximan and Zephyrian forces, now advancing with human support. Green marks represented human fleets, and there were thousands of them. "Where did all these ships come from?" Veltar asked in amazement. "We've been building them for 50 years, Vasquez replied. "The asteroid belt has 17 major shipyards. Jupiter's moons house our training facilities and weapons research. Saturn's rings hide our sensor networks. We've been preparing for galactic war since we first learned it was possible." War Prince Zekthul, now a prisoner aboard the human detention ship Redemption, watched through his cell's viewport as human fleets assembled for what appeared to be a final assault. Thousands of ships moved in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. "Impressive, isn't it?" came a voice from behind him. He turned to see Captain Sarah Chen entering his cell. The young human woman who had captured him looked tired, but determined. "You cannot win," Zekthul said desperately. "Even with your advanced technology, the Empire has millions of bioships. Our homeworld is protected by defenses that have never been breached." Sarah sat down across from him. "War Prince, do you know what the most dangerous thing about humans is? Your weapons, our patience. We spent 50 years learning everything about your defenses. We know exactly how to breach them. Our patience." She activated a small holographic projector that showed the Catherian homeworld in perfect detail. Every defense platform, every orbital fortress, every hidden base was clearly marked. "We've been inside your most secure facilities. We've mapped every weakness in your defenses. We've studied your psychology, your tactics, and your technology until we understand them better than you do." Zekthul stared at the display in horror. "This is impossible. Our security is designed to stop enemies who fight like you do. We don't fight like you do. We fight like us." The final phase of the war was about to begin, and the Catherian Empire was about to discover what happened when you forced humanity to stop being patient. The final battle for Catheria Prime began at dawn on the galaxy's most heavily defended world. Admiral Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Righteous Fury as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Before them lay the Catherian homeworld, surrounded by biofortresses that had protected it for millennia. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, "enemy fleet strength is approximately 8,000 bioships. Orbital defenses include 600 weapon platforms and 30 biostations." Vasquez studied the tactical display without concern. The Catherian defenses were impressive, for any other species. For humanity, they were simply obstacles to be removed. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "Operation Final Justice is authorized. All ships proceed according to plan." Around her, 2,000 human vessels moved toward their targets with mechanical precision. Each ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. They had been practicing this assault for 20 years. On the surface of Catheria Prime, Hive Queen Morthok watched the approaching human fleet through her biosensors. She was the supreme ruler of the Catherian Empire, a creature of pure aggression that had conquered dozens of worlds. Nothing had ever threatened her homeworld. "Deploy all defensive fleets," she commanded her war leaders. "Show these mammals what happens when they dare approach the heart of the Empire." The Catherian bioships rose to meet the human fleet like a swarm of angry insects. Their living hulls pulsed with bioweapons that could melt through any known armor. They had never lost a battle in their home system. Captain Sarah Chen watched from the bridge of the Perseverance as the enemy fleet approached. Her ship hung in space like a deadly predator, its stealth systems making it nearly invisible to Catherian sensors. "Captain," her weapons officer reported, "all targets are locked. Awaiting your order." Sarah thought of the children who had died on Luna, the researchers murdered on Mars, the civilians killed without warning. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "Fire." The human fleet opened fire simultaneously. What appeared to be simple kinetic weapons released energy that turned space itself into a weapon. Gravitational fields bent reality around the Catherian ships, crushing their bioarmor like paper. But the humans weren't trying to simply destroy the enemy fleet. They were conducting what they called a precision dismantlement, targeting specific systems to disable rather than destroy. They wanted prisoners, not corpses. Bioship after bioship found its weapons disabled, its engines crippled, its command centers neutralized. The Catherian crews were left alive but helpless as human ships moved through their formations like sharks through schools of fish. Hive Queen Morthok watched her supposedly invincible fleet die around her homeworld. "This is impossible," she hissed. "No species has technology this advanced." Her chief scientist, a trembling Catherian named Vectar, consulted his instruments with shaking claws. "My queen, their weapons are using controlled antimatter with gravitational focusing. They can manipulate the fundamental forces of physics. Then how did our spies miss this?" "I believe, my queen, that they wanted our spies to miss this." The orbital defenses of Cytheria Prime activated as the human fleet approached. Biocannons that could destroy planets fired streams of acid and plasma at the attacking ships. The weapons that had protected the homeworld for 1,000 years unleashed their full power. The attacks struck energy barriers around the human ships and simply stopped. The humans had surrounded their vessels with fields that could absorb any amount of energy and redirect it harmlessly into space. Admiral Vasquez opened a communication channel to the Cytherian homeworld. Hive Queen Morthok, of the Cytherian Empire. This is Admiral Elena Vasquez, of the Terran Defense Forces. Your orbital defenses are neutralized. Your fleet is defeated. Surrender now, and your people will be treated with mercy. The response came in the form of a bioweapon launched directly at Earth itself, a living planet killer that the Cytherians had been saving for their final victory. It was their most devastating weapon, capable of consuming an entire world. The bioweapon never made it past Jupiter. Human ships intercepted it in the outer solar system and destroyed it so completely that not a single living cell survived. The weapon that was supposed to end humanity lasted exactly 4 minutes against human defenses. That, Admiral Vasquez said quietly, was a mistake. The final assault on Cytheria Prime's surface began with surgical precision. Human ships descended through the atmosphere, their shields deflecting every weapon the defenders could fire. But instead of targeting population centers, they focused on military installations and government buildings. Evacuation corridors opened in the human formation. Clear paths for Cytherian civilians to escape the combat zones. Loudspeakers in the Cytherian language announced safe zones where non-combatants would be protected. Captain Sarah Chen led the assault team that captured the Imperial Palace. Her soldiers moved through the biostructure with perfect knowledge of its layout, disabling security systems and neutralizing guards without killing anyone they didn't have to. She found Hive Queen Morthok in her throne room, a creature of living armor and rage that stood 12 feet tall and commanded absolute power over her species. The queen was surrounded by her royal guards, preparing for a final battle. Hive Queen Morthok, Sarah said formally, removing her helmet to show her human face. I am Captain Sarah Chen, of the Terran Space Forces. You are under arrest for war crimes against humanity and multiple violations of interstellar law. The queen's mandibles clicked with fury. You dare enter my palace? I am the supreme ruler of the greatest empire in galactic history. You were, Sarah corrected. Your empire is finished. Your fleets are destroyed. Your homeworld is under our control. The only question now is whether you surrender with dignity or force us to take more drastic measures. Morthok gestured to her guards, who raised their bioweapons. Never. The Empire does not surrender to inferior species. The royal guards fired streams of acid and plasma at the human soldiers. The weapons struck their armor and bounced off harmlessly. The humans didn't even bother to take cover. Sarah sighed and nodded to her team. Non-lethal force authorized. The human soldiers fired stunners that dropped the Cytherian guards instantly. Morthok found herself alone, facing a species she had completely underestimated. How? She whispered. How is this possible? You are primitives. Our intelligence confirmed it. Sarah holstered her weapon and stepped closer. Your intelligence confirmed what we wanted it to confirm. We've been watching your empire for decades, learning your weaknesses, preparing for this day. Why? If you had this power, why didn't you stop the war years ago? Sarah's expression grew cold. Because we hoped you would learn to be better than you are. We gave you 20 years to prove you could coexist with other species. Instead, you chose to murder our children. The Hive Queen was taken aboard the human command ship for trial. As she sat in her cell, she received a visit from Ambassador Chen Wei-Ming, the human diplomat she had dismissed as a coward. Ambassador, she said bitterly, you lied to us for decades. Chen sat down across from her. No, Your Majesty. I told you exactly the truth. I said Earth would not enter the war. I said we feared conflict. I said we chose neutrality, but you hid your true capabilities. We hid our restraint, Chen corrected. There's a difference. You see, The strongest person in any room isn't the one who can hurt others the most. It's the one who can hurt others the most and chooses not to. He activated a holographic display showing the final battle statistics. Your empire lost 97% of its military forces. Your homeworld is occupied. Your government has surrendered. And yet, your civilian casualties number fewer than 1,000. Do you know why? Morthok stared at the impossible numbers. You could have destroyed us completely. In about 30 minutes, yes. Instead, we spent 3 days carefully dismantling your military while protecting your civilians. We destroyed your ability to make war while preserving your ability to make peace. The Treaty of Sol was signed 3 months later aboard a space station orbiting Earth. Representatives from every species in the galaxy came to witness the end of the war and the beginning of a new age. The terms were surprisingly generous. The Catherian Empire would be rebuilt as a democratic federation. War criminals would face trial, but ordinary citizens would be forgiven. The galaxy would be governed by a new council, with Earth holding a permanent seat. Admiral Vasquez stood before the assembled delegates and delivered humanity's final statement on the war. For 20 years, we watched this galaxy tear itself apart. We prepared for the possibility that someone would force us to act. When that day came, we acted with the full power of our civilization. She paused, looking out at representatives from dozens of worlds. But now that the war is over, we return to what we have always preferred to be. Builders, not destroyers. Teachers, not conquerors. Protectors of peace, not makers of war. The galaxy had learned that humanity possessed the most advanced military technology ever seen, but more importantly, they learned that humans possess something even rarer: the wisdom to use that technology only when necessary. Years later, children across the galaxy would learn about the species that became strong not to conquer others, but to ensure no one would ever again mistake their kindness for weakness. They would learn about the war that ended not with the destruction of the defeated, but with their redemption. And they would learn that the most human trait of all was the choice to show mercy to those who had shown none. Earth had proven that the strongest species in the galaxy was not the one that could destroy the most, but the one that could destroy everything, and chose instead to build something better. The war was over. The peace would last for generations.